Hey, this is Professor Lilly, and this is the first video I'm going to do to kind of just give some general feedback and observations of some of the blog posts and just talk about some upcoming things in the course. And let's see what. So I'll do a video like this also after the next deadline coming up, which is October 23rd for having 5 total blog posts, just giving general feedback. One thing I wanted to say is that I did start. Let's see if I can find it. Giving some feedback to each one of you. Let's see down here at the bottom. And I found out that I have 2 sections of this course, and for the you see how all of these here have a short reply from me, just giving some more specific feedback for each person. And I spent a day doing it for the other section, and all of them got rejected by the database for some kind of weird glitch, and so they fixed that. The Loyola Tech people helped me. So now I have to go back for the second section. So if you don't have any feedback on here, and it should be notifying you, the discussion forum tool should be notifying you when I say something, when I reply to your post. And I just decided this was the best place to do it. This is just where you told me what your URL for your blog is. So if you don't have anything, you can expect over the next couple or the next week that you'll get a little notification in your email, and it'll say that I replied, and it's just some more specific feedback for you in particular. Okay, so a few things in general. Let me start with this. So here's a really cool tool that someone told me about, and maybe some of you are already familiar with it. It's called Adobe Spark, and what it is it allows you to make kind of like a web page, but it's more like a web page that's generally good for single storytelling, as opposed to being a web page that has all sorts of other pages, sub-pages that have all sorts of information on it. But the idea is that it'll give you a URL, but it's good for really easily embedding photos and videos and little story vignettes. So if you see here, this one here, as I scroll down, it kind of changes. So basically the idea is that it's to the viewer's pace. So as the viewer scrolls down, new content will come up. So this one is about this writer's like I think 1 week long hike up in the Himalayas of Nepal. And so as we scroll up, so like this photo here of the Earth, she would have grabbed somewhere and put in the tool, and then like all this information here is all things that she's providing in the tool. And this is kind of several paragraphs of setting up the story, and then photos that she's taken along with some little vignettes. So I think it's a really interesting way to kind of tell a kind of short article or article type story, and I'm thinking about using it for my Intro to Communication course. And so I want to put this out there that if you have a travel, let's say a lot of you are doing travel within your study abroad program, so maybe like hopping on a train or hopping on a plane for a short flight to go somewhere. So if for one of your travel type blog stories, if you use Adobe Spark, then I'll give you extra credit. And I've looked at the interface for how you add the photos, and it's a really just simple timeline. You would want to do the writing first aspect, so you do still have to write, but it's also a way to tell stories through paragraph format and also really rich visuals. So this would be a trip that you would want to take lots of photos. So, and it's not really that much text. I'm guessing overall it's maybe like 700-800 words for this particular story. Yours doesn't have to be that long. But anyway, so the idea would be that you would go to Adobe Spark. You can set up an account for free. It has another more features if you pay $9, but you can get it for free. And then you would go to your blog, and then you would say, for this trip that I went to Venice, a side trip, I decided to use Adobe Spark, and here's the story. And you just put the link in there, and then, like I said, you'll get extra credit. You can use it more than once if you like the tool. I don't want you to totally abandon the blog, but I just think this is a really interesting thing that you can also probably use for other courses after this. Okay. Let's see what else. So a couple just general observations and ideas for, and here's some examples from some of the students' work. With Megan here, I liked how she put her bio here for on her blog. So I want all of you to go, if you haven't, some of you have already done this, go into the templates features of your blog tool and set it up so that somewhere you have a basic. You don't want to give a lot of intimate details or anything on this bio, but just so that anyone coming to your blog, because some people will just randomly find your blog and through the search engine and tells a little bit about it. I like the fact that she has her title here that will appear in subtitle on every page. Her format I also like, just in terms of it makes it easier for me because I can scroll down and see, and I would remember that I've already read 2 of these, but the most recent one I have not, right? And this is also for your family and friends following back home. It makes it easier for them to kind of see the different posts. So I'd like everyone to go ahead and sometime the next week or two go into, and I'm not going to go into details because everyone chose, or there's like 5 or 6 different blog tools that have been chosen by the students, but all of them allow you to go and tinker a little bit with a template and do things like this. So I'd like everyone to do that within the next few weeks. A few things, and I do have a kind of cheat sheet for myself that I want to get to. Okay, yeah, so blog template, the Adobe Spark. Okay, so one thing is I want all of the posts, except when it's not appropriate, to have photos and links. Okay, so far everyone is doing a pretty good job, and in fact I can't think of any, if I've read any so far, that don't have photos, so those are good. And most of the blogs allow for features where you're able to embed a kind of a small version of it and then also make it so it's clickable, and then they get a bigger one, and that's especially good for like kind of wider angle shots and things like that, so that people who are following you back home or happen to find a particular post can see the larger version of the image. And then also links. So let's say you visit a castle and you give a few of the historical details, but you're not going to spend like 200 or 300 words like going over all into the history. Then write in maybe one of the phrase, a particular phrase, or maybe where you have the name of the castle, then you can highlight it and make it a link and send people to a page that you found that gives a lot of more historical details on it. So that's what the link should be for, or maybe like if you were planning a trip and you found some really good resources, then you could even say, you know, I found this one great web page that talks about great restaurants in this particular area, and you can link that phrase to the blog that you found that's really great for those type of details. And again, this helps it so that you don't have to spend, you know, your whole post giving all these details, but instead you're kind of referring the readers to these better resources giving those details. So there might be a few, depending on what kind of story type, there might be a few that, you know, you're thinking, well, what am I going to link to? But I just want everyone, for each one of your posts, to think, you know, what type of additional resources could I link to? And if for that topic, if you can think, oh, you know, I could do this and this and this, then go ahead and research those and put those in. The same thing with videos. You know, if you're at a particular place and that's unique, and you could just take like on your phone, 10 seconds of video to just get a sense of what it was like to be there. You could even show yourself like talking, not I don't know what they call a video that's a selfie, but like you talking to someone about something, and some people are open for that kind of thing, and put it in there. You could also, if you happen to find a great video that on YouTube, what really goes into detail about a particular place, then go ahead and embed that as well. So far, I haven't seen anybody embed any social media embeds, but Twitter, Instagram, public Facebook pages, those are all super easy to embed in blog posts. So let's say your friend took a really good photo when you went to Venice and put it on Instagram, and then you can embed her Instagram photo that way, okay, if you don't have your own photo. So I want to see more of those too. So, for this first blog post, I didn't expect all of this. And kind of part of the way I'm grading is by the kind of middle and end of the semester. I want to start seeing these kind of best practices actually being applied in all of your stories. So so definitely start thinking about social media embeds as well. Let me get back to a couple examples. Okay, here in Amanda's story here, she went to a really interesting place called the Valley of the Fallen Soldiers. And the one thing I want to mention here, and she does give some historical details, you kind of have to decide what kind of story is it. Is it one where you kind of want to get more into those details, as if you were a real travel journalist really trying to kind of talk about the history of a particular place? That's fine. If you want to just give a small aspect of that, and pretty much any place where you go, you want to give some of those details, because you should imagine the audience being us back home, so your friends and family, not necessarily having been to this place before. And so what kind of questions will you pop up? Now, let's say the story you want to talk about is more about your emotional reaction. Well, that's fine. I mean, most of the words can be that, but you want to have at least some of the details so that we can understand what place you're at and what's the history of the place. So she mentioned that this place, I think that her and her other students who went there didn't realize that it was kind of a shrine for Francisco Franco, who was the dictator in Spain during World War II. Actually, kind of mostly before that, but he did a lot of bad things. And I think that she was shocked that some of the people who were visiting, some of the locals who were visiting, seemed to see him as a hero. So in that kind of instance, and I thought that was really good. So please don't shy away from, like, if there's something like some cultural difference, some issue of a diversity, race, whatever it is, don't shy away from kind of trying to delve into that and find out what's going on. So this kind of raised a few questions for me that I thought maybe she could have gone into a little bit more details, right? So the fact that that some people nowadays kind of see a person, this dictator, as a hero who was an ally of Hitler, kind of maybe seems shocking from the United States perspective. So it would be great if she could have gone into a little bit more detail and found out, why that is, and why is it that these people see him as a hero. But in general, I think it was great that she spent some time talking about that and how she was very surprised by it. This is one of those examples where a link or two would be great to kind of give us more historical information on this site as well. For this one, let's see whose post is this. I can't remember whose post this is, but let's see if she has it here. Yeah, this is the reason why by the end of the semester I'll be able to remember whose posts these are. But the reason why I wanted to put this is because I liked her development of a style that's kind of talking about more of the in-person type experience of what's going on. So it's very kind of a personal style. So we see here like the address in the first person. So we had just missed an early train to the airport. And I remember the reason why it's called Got Balls is because there was a joke that some local boys told her and her friends that they thought was funny. It was kind of an interesting kind of interaction. So the reason why I want to put this in here as examples: don't shy away from dialogue or from telling some of the more intimate kind of stories, things that happen. Like, let's say something funny happens in a cafe, or you have a really good like ad hoc discussion with someone that you've never met before. Those type of things kind of give a lot of details and color, kind of make it seem really real for those of us who are reading. So don't shy away from dialogue, from rich details of telling stories like that. So, and it seems like, this is the type of writing that she's like to do, so she's developing a style. But what I wanted to mention to her and everyone else is make sure that you don't forget that a certain 5 stories need to be in a particular type of story. So to find that out, you go to blogging assignment and you download that, and you scroll down to the bottom, and it says here 5 stories that everybody will write. Okay, so just don't forget these, because it would hurt your grade if you forgot to. Several of you, for your first story that you've already written, did write this first one, your first impression of where you are. In fact, I'd say about half of the first stories were like that. And this doesn't have to be the order for your first 5 stories, okay? It just has to be somewhere within the between 14 and 20 or 25, however many posts you do, have to be, these 5 have to be included somewhere. And for the second one, where you're modeling it after a story that you've read, just go ahead and in the blog post say, maybe at the bottom or the beginning, say, I read this particular story on whatever page it was, and put a link, so that I know that that fulfills requirement number 2. Story about a visit to a major tourist site. Again, this doesn't necessarily have to be tons of historical information, but some, to kind of give us some details, even if it more tends to be something about more of your personal experience, is fine. A couple of you have already talked about the university you're attending, and then a routine activity. And for these in particular, and one of my general observations is you do want to add as much rich detail and color. And by color, I mean, if you're walking by buildings at your university, how are they different from ones here at Loyola? I mean, is there moss growing over half of it, or can you really, when you pass by, you really get just a sense that it really is a building that's 500 years old, which certainly could be a case for a lot of your universities. Maybe in what you could give us a vignette of, like I said, and what happened in a coffee shop. And maybe part of it was embarrassing, but also you're trying to loosen up, and you got some lessons from your barista or whatever it is. That would be what I consider color, like something giving us as readers a sense of what it's like to be there. So some rich detail is also one of the comments that I might include on, or already have on, a lot of your first posts. Let's see. Okay, lastly, I do want to let you know that this critique assignment, I'm going to be giving the assignments for the 2 people that you need to read their blogs. So this will be 2 other students in the class, and I'm going to tell you, probably next week I'll send out those assignments. And remember that a lot of these are milestones, okay? I do want these critiques to be done by the 6th, but a lot of these other assignments, like the writing assignments, the reading assignments, see here where it says the milestone. So the milestone is just something for you, rather than saying, okay, just make sure you turn it in by December 10th, which doesn't necessarily help you kind of pace yourself. The milestones are just for pacing. So you could turn this assignment in, the reading assignment, on October 15th, on November 2nd, and you wouldn't be counting off as long as you did the assignment. Okay, so the milestone is just for you. The course is specifically designed to be very, very flexible because the range of experiences among students abroad is very, very different. Some of you let me know that you only got to your host university last week, so making some of these milestones difficult, but that's why I reiterated in my last email that a milestone is just kind of like a marker for where you might be in the course. And if it's a milestone, then you will not be at all penalized for missing that date. Okay, and for the due dates as well, if there's some kind of issue and you're just really having it difficult meeting it, just let me know like a few days beforehand, and I could talk with you about your personal experiences, and there might be able to be a relaxing of that deadline. Okay, let's see if I got everything here. In general, I would say I have noticed a fair number of grammar problems. For travel, for any kind of writing, public writing, AP style does apply. With the possible caveat, well, things like dialogue or local vernacular or more informal writing are fine. You know, whatever the particular genre is that you're trying to adopt for a story. I mean, if you're doing a good job, I'll understand it. But even in most of those cases, you know, you should use the basic AP style rules, which is, like I said, general for kind of any general public writing. And I'm not going to penalize for because there's the AP style book is that thick, so I'm not going to penalize for any tiny mistakes and stuff like that. I just want you to be careful. Reread your post several times. Like wording, sometimes I can tell it's, you know, whoever wrote it just didn't go back and reread, and there's a word missing, or it's the wrong word, like spell check. I turned it into something else, and then it wasn't reread and corrected. Things like that. Let's see. Okay, we got the 5 required story types, so don't forget that. That would mean that's just somewhere in the 14 required. Now, for a lot of you, I think it would be great if you go beyond 14. If you note in the, I got too much stuff open here. In the blog assignment, that I did say 200 to 600 words. To be honest, I think 200 is generally pretty short. So, I mean, if you had a really quick to the point, like review of a restaurant or something like that, maybe that 200 words would not seem short. But a lot of the writing you're doing where it's really kind of talking about experience or a trip or recounting something, I think that closer to 600 makes it feel more full. Okay, like I said, I'm not going to be counting these words, but I do think that some of these shorter posts, it kind of feels like, you know, as the reader, I want a little bit more in-depth detail or more dialogue or more description, or more something. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Let's see, did I get all my tips? Okay, and then lastly, just to remind you that the next due date is October 23rd, a Monday, for 5 total posts. That includes the first one that all of you have done, and as I've been looking at these blogs, a lot of you are already into your second or third post. Okay, so you just have to have 5 total, and this is a hard deadline. It's just to make sure you're continuing to write at a decent pace. And for a lot of you, I anticipate you are going to end up having more than 14, which is great. Okay, and remember that if you do an Adobe Spark page as a way to tell one of these stories, then that would count for one of those. You can do more than one Adobe Spark page. Just make sure when you do it, create the page and then make a blog post saying for this, I went on this trip to Venice and I chose to use Adobe Spark as a way to tell the story, and then paste in the link so I can find it and watch it. Okay. As usual, the best way to ask me any particular questions, or just email me, and I'll get back to you within a day or so. Okay, so hope everyone, I'm sure everyone's having a great time abroad. And again, email me with any questions. And if you haven't got any feedback yet on your first blog post, then like I said, due to the technical problems, I have to go back for that second section and add a little bit of feedback for each one of you. So you can expect that to happen pretty soon. All right, take care. Bye.